Let me ask you a simple national security question. What if there happened to be a strip of land that was so strategically important that if it were blocked, the nearly entire northeastern part of India could be cut off from the mainland India? Sounds extreme, but that strip actually exists and it is called the Siliguri Corridor, or as it is most famously known as the chicken's neck. So, we talk about this in this particular video. We have seen that for decades, this corridor has been considered as one of the India's most strategic vulnerabilities, considering the neighboring countries as well, because this narrow passage, barely around 20 to 22 kilometers wide at some points, connects the mainland India to all of the 8 northeastern states. Now, according to the recent developments, India is moving aggressively to strengthen this region. It is utilizing various kinds of things like highway transfers, underground railway plans, military logistics upgrades, and strategic infrastructure expansion. What are the experts saying? The experts are saying that the chicken's neck may no longer remain as vulnerable as it was before. But to delve into it and understand it, is that really true? Why has this corridor always been considered dangerous strategically? So today in this video, we will try and understand what the chicken's neck actually is, why it has worried the Indian strategists for decades, what India is building there now, and whether this vulnerability is finally being reduced. So welcome students to Legacy IS. In this video, we'll try and cover this article from the first post, that is chicken's neck no longer vulnerable, highway transfer will boost security, that is being said by the experts. Okay, so first, India's most sensitive corridor. That means let us understand what chicken neck, why chicken neck actually is so important. Okay, so first of all, when we talk about it, it connects the mainland India to the northeast. As you can see in this map, this is the chicken's neck. This area, this is hardly 20 to 22 kilometers. And if there were a hostile country that could have attacked India from either of these sides, then these could have been made vulnerable because the whole of the northeast, the 8 northeastern states, would have been cut off from the mainland, right? So the Siliguri Corridor, in summary, lies in the North Bengal near Siliguri, and geographically it is extremely narrow. Its tightest point, if we have to talk about the tightest point, it is 20 to 22 kilometers. So now we understand the passes that are through this narrow strip. There are multiple highways, railway lines, fuel movement, military logistics, civilian transport, communication networks. So many things that are critical for the security of India. Now, everything connecting mainland India to the northeast. So, this means that if this corridor is disrupted, India's connection to the states like Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Tripura, Mizoram, Nagaland, Manipur, Meghalaya, and Sikkim, all these 8 states, it becomes severely affected. Now look at the geography. On one side we have Nepal. Here we have Nepal. On the another side we have Bangladesh, and on this side we have China, and then we also have Bhutan on this side. Okay, so this becomes much more of a strategic issue, and nearby you will also have China's Chumbi Valley. Okay, so this creates enormous strategic pressure on the security of India, because any hostile military situation in this region could threaten India's supply lines. To simplify this, imagine the human body. If the neck is blocked, the brain loses the connection with the body. And that is exactly why this region is called the chicken's neck. Okay. So, understanding all of this, we have to understand one important line when we talk about all of this. That one line is the corridor. This corridor is not just about a road connection. It's in India, it is actually the strategic lifeline to to the northeast. Now, considering why it was considered to be vulnerable, okay, why it was considered to be vulnerable, the security risks that are associated with it, let us understand the next question. That this region is considered vulnerable for so long, and what is the reason? First reason is the narrow geography, okay, that is single narrow connectivity route, narrow geography, that when critical infrastructure is concentrated into one small corridor, it becomes a choke point, and choke points are dangerous in military strategy. Second, risk during war or conflict. That means proximity to adversaries. Chinese military presence near the Chumbi Valley has long worried the Indian planners. Because in a conflict scenario, pressure on this corridor could isolate the northeast. Third, Chinese proximity concerns, infrastructure bottlenecks. That means limited infrastructure. For years, India depended heavily on the limited number of highways and rail lines through this region. And this has created bottlenecks. Fourth, fifth, landslide and weather disruptions. That means environmental vulnerability is there as well. That means roads like National Highway 10, which connect Sikkim, have repeatedly suffered landslides and weather disruptions. Now, just think strategically. Even without war, heavy rainfall or landslides could temporarily disrupt connectivity. And then imagine what the conflict conditions could do. And this is why military experts have repeatedly described the corridor as one of the India's most sensitive strategic zones. So important insight here is that the danger was never just the invasion, the danger was disruption. But the next question is that what India is building now. So India's strategic infrastructure push, particularly in this region, and it is something that invokes our curiosity as well, that what is India now changing so that this kind of a vulnerability can be reduced. So according to the recent reports, West Bengal has transferred multiple highway stretches to the central agencies like NHAI and NHIDCL. And why is this important? This is important because it allows faster strategic infrastructure construction without prolonged state level delays. Now, look at the scale of the plan. India is reportedly expanding the railway system. It is expanding this railway system from double track to six track infrastructure. But the biggest development is this, that we are also going for underground railway construction. Reports suggest that India plans nearly 40 kilometers of underground railway, that is 20 to 24 kilometer, 20 to 24 meters below the surface. But why are we building it underground? It is because underground infrastructure is harder to target during the conflict. It is because it is much more resilient against airstrikes, against drone attacks, against any artillery fire. So this fundamentally changes strategic survivability. And at the same time, roads connecting to Bhutan, Sikkim, Darjeeling, and border regions are also being upgraded. So this means that India is no longer treating the corridor as merely a transport issue. It is rather treating it as a national security priority. So simple line here is that India is trying to convert a choke point into a fortified corridor. That's very interesting. Okay. And then considering all of this infrastructural push by India, does this change India's strategic position? Okay. Now let us see. From vulnerability to resilience, does it make a push towards this kind of an attainment so that we are strategically even stronger? So the final question is, does this completely solve the problem? And the answer is not fully, but definitely it changes the equation significantly. Okay. First, reduces logistical fragility. Okay. So first thing is that logistical resilience improves. That is more roads, more tracks, underground infrastructure, all reduce dependence on single vulnerable routes. Second thing is It improves the military mobility. Military mobility also improves because troops, fuel, equipments, supplies can move faster and more securely towards the northeast in case of any kind of conflict driven situation. Third is that the integration strengthens, that is strengthening of northeast integration. Okay, that means better infrastructure would mean that the northeast becomes more physically and economically connected to the mainland India. And fourth is that there is a strategic signaling, okay, signals strategic preparedness on the side of India. That means infrastructure itself sends geopolitical signals. That is, India through its infrastructural push is saying that this corridor will not remain weak anymore. But one more thing must be understood, that no strategic choke point ever becomes completely risk free. That is, geography cannot be changed. The corridor will remain sensitive because of its location. However, what can change is preparedness. And that is exactly what India appears to be focusing on right now. So now ask yourself, what protects a nation more effectively? Is it the military strength alone, or is it strong infrastructure combined with military readiness? The final line that we can take away from this issue is that in modern geopolitics, roads and railways are not just development projects, they are actually strategic weapons. Thank you so much.